Hi everybody, it's Kelly Sunrose. Welcome to Yoked. I'm really happy to be here together today with you for a seasonal shifts podcast. And, over the years, the many years now, over a decade of creating this show, one of the things that has been quite constant over the past handful of years is the checking in around the shifting of the seasons. And so thanks for taking this time to be in this rhythm together. Before we dive into the density and the practices of this episode, just wanted to check in around some announcements and to invite you to support this work if it is meaningful to you. First, just wanted to say that the doors are open. The virtual doors are open to my online practice community, the Wildcat Yoga Club. They are open until the end of January 2021, and then we close them a bit so that we can really dive into the work with a known universe of folks. And then again in early December next year, I'll reopen them for the following year. And our theme for the year in the Wildcat Yoga Club is devotions. And so each month we will center a particular deity or archetype, primarily goddesses, and we'll dive into practices around revealing the qualities of those archetypes within ourselves and refining our own devotional practices through the entire range of koshas or layers of self, layers of community. And so if you're interested in supporting the podcast, interested in diving a bit more deeply into work together, I invite you to join the Wildcat Yoga Club. It is such a sweet space to practice in. We gather once a week live via Zoom, and there are also, like a decade's worth of practices in the practice library. Anyhow, you are welcome there. I'd love to practice with you. Coming up, also have more opportunities to practice together in both real time and anytime. In January, I'm beginning a new monthly practice called the Karma Circle. And this is a space for us to practice the yoga of action, where each month we'll center some sort of cause or action or specific aspect of living in community on practice Earth, on planet Earth, also on practice Earth, and we'll engage in a a deepening practice and also in an action together, whether that is letter writing or learning as a group so that we can have better conversations in our home communities around particular issues related to liberation, or just to inspire us to take specific volunteer action in our own lives or our lives outside of that space. Every month, I will feature an organization that folks could choose to support, either financially or with their time or their energy or efforts. And really excited about that. And we're beginning in January. Take a peek over at the website, sunroseyoga.com, for all of the details. It's a free event. I'll be holding that space for us to work together. But in order to receive the Zoom info, an RSVP is required. So, would love to see you there. Also in January, I am teaching my annual habits workshop, Begin Where You Are. This is a workshop I've been teaching now for a handful of years, and it's a space, it's sort of like a lab where we learn how to create and to nourish our habits in ways that will really work for us, and in ways that approach life and the choices we make in our lives as opportunities for experimentation rather than opportunities to self-judge. So, oh my gosh, I love teaching this, and I'm excited. This will be the first year that I'm teaching it online because it will be recorded video and audio, and then I'll be able to put everything sort of together into a little course that folks can repeat. And it's fine to come live or non-live, which is also great since I know many of you live in parts of the world where, relative to when I hold events, it's not a very convenient time for you. And yeah, super duper excited. That will be on January 9th from 1 to 4 p.m. Pacific time. And it will also be available as a course, and it'll be available for everyone, live and non-live participants. Again, the full details and the sign-up info is at sunroseyoga.com. Also, later in the month of January, be offering another meditation and writing mini immersion. And this is called Out of the Void and Into the Collective. And it's just building on all of the work that we've been doing, primarily the work of the practice we've all been doing in 2020 that has been so potent. That being said, this requires no prior meditation or prior writing practice. You just come as you are. Again, these practices can be repeated as often as you like. And yeah, these mini immersions, meditation, writing have been very fertile territory for much creativity and intention and path to skillful action in this community. As with all of the paid offerings, the offerings that are not necessarily free, it's offered on a sliding scale basis. And if you have questions about that, let me know. I don't want to turn anyone away for lack of funds. So those are announcements for now. Just really excited about practicing together in whatever ways are feasible in 2021. So now on to this seasonal work. Oh, it's a treat. I just love like thinking back and also listening back to years past and also reading emails from folks from years past regarding seasonal practices. So I would like to invite you to share whatever comes to your heart and mind via email or in the comments to this post wherever you're seeing it. And above all, to remember that like we're all going through this together. We're all experiencing, even in varied and disparate ways that we experience the day to day, like these big shifts we're all experiencing. And as I record this, we are very, very close to the solstice. In the northern hemisphere where I am, this will be the winter solstice, which marks the longest night, the shortest day, the farthest we are from the sun. Just prior, it's like the bottom of the well before we start to, sort of scoop more daylight each day. And in the southern hemisphere, of course, the opposite is happening. We're reaching the summer solstice, the brightest, the closest, the hottest, the most outwardly apparent and radiant. And at the same time, on the solstice, we have this really beautiful conjunction happening, the great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. And they will be so close in the sky that they will appear as one enormous bright light. And that light itself, particularly here in the northern hemisphere, where we are in such darkness right now, the darkness is predominant in the day. This bright light, and the brightness of that light is possible because these two celestial bodies are together. And that feels particularly potent to me right now, for me right now. Like just that astrological, astronomical experience, illustration that we are more powerful, we are brighter, more potent together. And also significant to me as a now longtime student, but definitely student, serious daily student of astrology, is that this conjunction happens as Saturn and Jupiter are both moving into Aquarius, out of Capricorn into Aquarius. And, one of the great skills or illuminations of fully realized Aquarius is this perspective that contains, that centers the collective, that centers more than just my personal experience, and also a longer arc than just my life. So all of that feels particularly auspicious at this moment. And it is pretty significant astrologically. And as I mentioned, I am a serious student, but I'm not a teacher of astrology. So if you want to know more about the specific cycles related to that, I would direct your attention to Chani Nicholas or to one of my other daily teachers of astrology, Paramatma Siddhi Sadhana, and her Aquarian Age transmissions. So on to the work of this season. So there's this shift that is happening. We travel fully into here where I am like the womb of, the darkest place. And we're then starting the process of re-emerging. And in years past, we here have talked quite a bit about the elements of the season we are entering into, and do that today as well. I always, at the cusp or the precipice of a new season, want to do equal parts looking back and looking forward. And so we're moving out of autumn, where I am, out of peak Vata season, the elements there being air and space, where we have the biggest temperature drops, and where we've gone through a period of dryness and lightness, as in like mobility, like crackling leaves and blowing wind, and energetically too, this sort of like scurrying around to where I live, prepare for the election and post-election, and scurrying around sort of in preparation for winter. And if you have been paying attention to the wildlife and the natural elements in your area, you might have also noticed the spiders really spinning their webs, catching lots of insects, and the squirrels scrambling to gather their nuts for winter, and the birds sort of doing the same, like on the search for high calorie foods, and also just sort of like noticing the weather where you are, like what was the most prevalent element or elements of the season that you just came out of. Was it dry or moist? Was it still or windy? Did you have rain or snow? Was there pollen being blown through the air? All of those things are part of our assessment, or our intentional practice of noticing. So we begin the work by noticing where we've been, and attuning our observations of the world around us to our own experience. So perhaps asking, how was my life, my mood, my mind, my body, my physical body, how were they like all that is also happening in the world around me, both, what we might refer to as natural experiences or phenomena, and also sort of cultural phenomena, and just placing yourself or locating yourself in that. What happened? Where have you been? And staying in the elements now, like the shift is very subtle. Like it's not as if the day after the solstice we have a completely different season, or like the light spills back all at once. No, things happen very gradually. So it's possible that, you're still very much in the vata of late fall, or the damp kapha of spring. Like maybe the fire hasn't fully been lit. Maybe it's just like a smolder, like when you're trying to light wet wood. And so they're just distinguishing between the northern and the southern hemisphere. In the north, we're moving from the time of air and space, Vata, to the time of earth and water, Kapha. And it's happening slowly. And in the southern hemisphere, we've sort of shifted, or we're in the process of shifting from the time of Kapha, earth and water, probably more water this time of year, into the time of Pitta, fire, with that, like, bearing in mind that fire contains multitudes and requires multitudes. And so just thinking about the elemental properties of the season that you're moving into, and like what specific characteristics you can think about of earth and water. Like there's density. There is a holding, a staying power to earth, particularly, that we haven't had in the season of air and space, where we might be, more likely to stay put. And I know that's a little, what could I possibly mean by that in this year of quarantine, this year of pandemic life? But I challenge you to look at that a little more subtly, and to think about your mental state and whether you're more likely to stay with one idea, or in your emotional body, if an emotion itself is more prone to lingering than the high mobility time of autumn, air, and space. And these are all just questions. And sometimes, just depending on our own constitution and with what we are personally working, the overall flavor, the overall rasa, sap of the season will not mirror what we're feeling exactly. And there's certainly no shame in that. This is an observation point. We can, it's a choice point. It'll offer us information from which we can move more skillfully. So anyway, that's sort of the elemental profile of where we've been and where we're going. Definitely here where I live, yesterday we got, we're like starting the very hard rains, the saturating rains where things do feel very wet. Up until now, it's been like the soil still has a dry quality to it, but now we're starting to turn toward the cold and the wet and that like cold, dense mud of the winter. And since I'm not in the southern hemisphere, I can't really even conjure the feeling in this moment of that, the dripping of water and the warmth of the sun on your cheeks, and the slightly different flavor profile of the breeze as it softly comes as you move towards summer. And so those are specific seasonal related notes. Now we move more into the personal inquiry around the shift in the season. And this is what I think You know, it's the habit of asking the questions and examining our own responses and habits and adaptations. This is the nectar. This is the rhythm that feels very rich. And we've been through a hard year. If you're listening in real time, it's been a hard year. And so my request, my prayer, my blessing for all of us is that the seasonal inquiry be one that uplifts our resilience and uplifts the things, the adaptations we made that were so right, that we're so proud of. And we will, of course, do the self-study of like, okay, what would I do differently? But it's also been a hard year. So please light a candle and bow to your resilience. Bow to your brilliance in adapting to pandemic, to global uprisings, to thwarting coup attempts in the United States. And I know I'm probably forgetting other things that we've been through this year. My family and many other Western United States, Western North American continent friends, we've lived through a really hard wildfire season as well. Hard hurricane season. Yes. So honor your resilience. Now, getting into specific questions around your practice, what were you actively practicing this season? Take time to feel into that. I fully support pressing pause and coming back. What did you learn this season? What did you learn about yourself? What did you learn about yourself in relationship? In relationship to the practices, to the people in your biome, the people that you're very close to, that you're in proximity to, even in pandemic, and about your relationships, outside of that, sort of if you were to, imagine the circles, the widening circles of yourself. How were you relating? What did you learn in relationship to your neighbors and, a little beyond your neighborhood, your city? I know many people are deciding like, oh, being in pandemic, I'm fully committed to my town or my city, or I really feel pulled to move. What are you learning about your relationships with people that you are in active disagreement with? What about your relationship with the elements, the earth, the natural forces in us and around us? And even, just imagine as broad as you can. What are you learning in relationship? Always pressing pause when the time is right. And then beginning that, just, it's hard. I love getting in there and like taking a hard look at my own stuff. And, and also it's like this year, can we do that? Can we be self-aware? Can we engage in self-study with, with that candor, that radical candor? And can we do it with total gentleness? And so, asking the harder questions, like, what would I have done differently in hindsight? What would I not repeat? What choices personally that you made would you not make again? Now I know it's it can be it's interesting. It's like maybe challenging to get into that practice, and then also it can be, we can easily get carried away into I don't know, self-punishment. But can you approach this with a lens of growth, with a lens of like learning moving forward, rather than admonishing yourself from the lessons learned, from mistakes made, or just, that we don't know until we know. So, just taking a minute to engage in that inquiry. And also, I think at this time, like I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, this is the end of a cycle. This is the close of a particular cycle. What do you need to leave here? What are you aware of about yourself? What have you been holding on to that hurts you, that you can choose to leave? And just, and again, in that spirit of gentleness, remembering that the leaving can happen again and again. I just had a big dose of self-awareness around something I thought I had been letting go of, but I had to keep, dropping the thing that was hurting me until I fully realized what it really was, what the thing was, where I thought it was this one thing I was doing. And I'll tell you more about it when I do my own reflections here. But it's okay for that to be a longer term process or project. So now, that's sort of our transition point to looking ahead. And I think it's useful to begin the look forward to the new season in really concrete, physical, practical terms. Looking to what we know about the elements, the weather, the physical conditions we're living in right now, to ask, how can I best care for myself going into this next season? And that could be through your daily care structures. It could be things like as simple as I just got a really warm winter jacket in anticipation of socializing, distanced, of course, outdoors this winter. Like, I won't be having people in my house, but we, in order to maintain sanity and community, I imagine us having some bonfires in my backyard, or tea on my front porch. And to stay warm, I got myself a new coat, which, I don't know, it could seem like a really simple thing, but I know that for me this will make a big difference in how I survive and feel through the winter. So, like, taking those times to just brainstorm, like, oh, we're going into the cold season, we're going into a hard pandemic winter, or, if you're in one of those places, Southern Hemisphere friends, where you're going into the hot season and you're mostly through the worst of the pandemic. What are the foods that will cool and comfort you? How will you return to, a life of being in closer proximity to others? How will you do that without then, like, depleting yourself? So those really practical questions around you situated in your season and you situated in your practice. And along those lines, what specifically are the practices and the rhythms and the rituals that you would like to call in to your life this season? And in support of that, I always, whenever there's a goal or intention or a desire, I think it's a really good idea to sort of set yourself up with some ideas of resources that can assist you. Like, what teachings, what books, what supplies, what space in your schedule will support that learning. And looking farther ahead, what are the seeds? This could be literal, but could also just be figurative. What seeds are you planting in this season to assist you or benefit you or your people in the following season? So, like, what future blessings are you cultivating now? What practices, what plans are you laying down now that, are in support of the future? And always that can mean, the season we're talking about may not be the next actual season. It could be, what seeds are you planting now for 10 seasons or 10 years or 10 generations? Wow. Can we think that far ahead? And ending this work, if it's possible, with a blessing, with an acknowledgement of where you are, all you've lived through, a gesture of appreciation for every blessing that you have been bestowed, and a wish or a dream or a hope for all beings, everywhere in space, everywhere in time, including yourself always. And so I will close with deepest appreciation for you in this space, no matter where, no matter when you are listening. And the blessing, may we be well. Take the very best care until we meet again, and always. Om Tat Sat.